Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's ICCFA Back to Business webinar, Funeral Succession Solved, Part 1, A Guide for Sellers and Buyers. My name is Andrew Kennedy, and I am the Vice President of the Funeral Home and Cemetery team at Live Oak Bank. It's an honor to be with you guys today. I'm really excited for a couple different reasons, but first, this is a Part 1, which means that there is a second session that we will have at the end of January. So if you aren't signed up for that one yet, please do so. And hopefully this is informative, helpful, and something that you'll want to join us for Part 2. And of course, I do want to thank ICCFA for having me doing this webinar, helping us get started, and everything ICCFA does for our beloved profession. So again, appreciate everyone joining with me. Just another housekeeping item before we kind of jump into today's material. We do have a chat feature in which would love to see some questions, thoughts, ideas, just anything that may come to mind. Feel free to utilize it. I'll be kind of monitoring the chat as we go to making sure that I am addressing questions, thoughts, and being a part of the greater discussion as well. So really excited to be here with you guys. I will have time for questions at the end, but if there's a specific slide and a thought and you may forget, feel free to throw in your question and we'll spend some time there discussing it and then have time again at the end for any other questions that come in. But really excited to be here with you guys today, and I hope that this information is really helpful to you. Really excited about this topic, funeral succession, because regardless of if you are a new owner that is thinking about selling their business in 10, 20, 30, 40 years maybe, you're a seller that is thinking about retirement and what's next. It's never too early to be having these conversations, learning more about the topic and what you can be doing to better prepare yourself regarding expectations, timing, price, all the above. And then also, it's never too early if you were thinking about buying a business, always important to be thinking about like you're going to sell the next day. I think that's a really good habit to get into. So even if you are a potential buyer, I think this is also going to be really helpful for you, as it's a good perspective from each, and excited to share that with you. So today's agenda, again, for Part 1, we're going to give an intro, which is going to share some small business and funeral home and cemetery statistics regarding succession, percentages, who's doing what. Maybe some things will be interesting, some surprising statistics to you probably as well. We're going to spend a few slides talking about risk and challenges, kind of from the view of a buyer and a seller. So that will be really interesting. We're going to talk about creating a succession strategy. This is really important. So we're going to spend some time here, really important to determining, what it looks like for you, what you want to get, identifying what your goals are, and making sure that you are doing everything you can now to fulfill and meet those goals. And then we're going to spend our last bit of time together today talking about finding your ideal buyer or business. So again, we're going to kind of look at it from both the selling and the buyer perspective, which I think will be interesting and helpful to everyone on this call, regardless of where you currently sit today. Most businesses are not prepared for succession, which probably doesn't really surprise you when you really think about it. Would encourage you, if you are an existing business owner, as we kind of go through some of the material, maybe see where you would fall in this. 51% of the current American business market is owned by baby boomers who are set to transition over the next 0 to 10 years. So think about that. Half of the individuals on our call today are thinking about potentially retiring, selling their business in the next 10 years. What are you doing today to make that easier for you? Hopefully today will be helpful for that. Only 20 to 30% of businesses that go to market to sell, leaving 80% without a solid option to harvest their wealth and ensure business continuation to the next generation. 63% of small business owners do not have a succession plan. Pretty interesting there. A lot of folks thinking about selling, but a lot of folks don't have an idea where to start, haven't put any thought, haven't exhausted their resources. So let's talk about that today as well. 27% of small businesses have accelerated transition plans due to the state of the economy. Think about just COVID a few years ago. Wonder what that has done to succession, working harder hours, business being more difficult, price increases. Has that sped up your retirement plans? 44% of small business owners felt that succession was too far in the future to start planning now. I believe the biggest myth out there is you don't need to start planning that far in advance. I think it's so important, and we're going to talk more through this in our time together today and our next session. It's never too early to be thinking about this, even if you don't know who you may sell to, even if you feel like it's a decade away. There's plenty of things that you can be doing to position yourself and your business in the best position possible for when that time comes. Time flies. So let's make sure that everyone's ready for it. And also, again, thinking about it from if you're a buyer, right? You know that you want to buy a funeral home or cemetery one day, but there's not an opportunity that's currently available to you. Maybe do some due diligence, figure out what you need to be doing. Do you need to be working with a bank, a lender? What can you be doing to making sure that you're putting yourself in the best position possible to seek financing or identify a business opportunity? 42% of small business owners stated that they are too busy to plan for succession. This stat also was a little bit surprising to me. I feel like the next step in either for you or your business, should be one of the main career items or things that you're focused on. I think in today's world, we're all really busy. And I think it's important to kind of hear that statistic and maybe take a step back and think about where you're spending your time, what's really driving business, what do you need to be doing, how do you need to be prioritizing family, hobbies, community, business, but making sure that this is something that should be top of mind and that you are allocating your time, resources, and really thinking about. Really, really important. Our industry, the funeral home and cemetery profession, is facing similar trends today. So just under 50%, 45.9% of funeral home businesses and their owners plan to retire in the next 5 years. So again, kind of aligning with what the greater small business population is saying. So again, something to really consider. Half of you guys here may be thinking about this. So this should be hopefully really key and valuable information to you. About a quarter of funeral home businesses and their owners have a succession plan in place. So again, even 10% less than what most small business owners are doing. So again, something that we all, I think, can be spending some time doing, especially if you're thinking about in the next 5 years. This is really, really important to making sure that you are happy, you're satisfied from a number standpoint, timing, identifying who's going to continue your legacy. Really, really important. And about 30% of funeral home businesses are confident in their business's ability to withstand a major disruption. So 3 out of 10 feel like if a major disruption came, their business would remain profitable and remain healthy. Would love to see that number grow. So let's talk about that to see what we can be doing to making sure that the next generation, what's to come, everything is in line and is going to keep your business successful. Family-owned businesses are a big part of the funeral home and cemetery industry. Many of you on the call may own a family-owned business that has been in your family's name for quite some time. The lack of succession planning is also noticeable with a family-owned business, surprisingly enough. Only 34% of family-owned businesses have a robust, documented, and communicated succession plan for the company. So 1 out of 3 have put pen to paper, have communicated it to their accountant, their consultant, their financial partner, their spouse, whomever it may be, to kind of help them navigate through this process. Only 1 in every 3 family-owned businesses. Only 3 out of 10, 30% of family-owned businesses survive the second generation. That statistic also kind of blew my mind. As I think of many family-owned businesses that are, risk-free, know exactly what we're going to do, should be turnkey, minimal risk, but the data actually tells us different. So let's talk about, 2 or 3 keys to making sure that this remains successful, and give you a few things to kind of chew on and think about. You've heard me say this once, won't be the last time, probably in our time together today, but start planning early. Succession planning and successor training can take years. We see it all the time. The more prepared you are, the better experience, the more rewarding, the whole 9 yards, everything becomes more favorable to you if you think about it earlier. We work with, buyers and sellers frequently, and the ones that are ready to move forward and can move forward are the ones that have a plan in place. A much simpler process, less stressful from all accounts, if you've put some thought into that. Working with a family business advisor and having an effective succession plan with distinct guidelines can prevent conflict amongst family. Sometimes family transactions are very easy. Sometimes they can be very difficult. When you start talking and dealing with family and finances and money, it can be difficult. So making sure that you are doing the necessary steps, having certain conversations, getting the right third-party consultants, advisors, whomever hired, to making sure that those conversations are successful and effective. Embrace change. Tradition can be the bedrock of a family business, but it can also be a barrier to growth. This industry, as you guys know just as well as me, and it all day, every day, the industry is changing. What are you doing? What is your business doing? What is your staff doing? Maybe there's some things that you're doing extremely well. Maybe there's some things that you say, hey, I could probably be a little bit better at. Where does succession planning, where does that fall for you when you think about this? You need a plan. Really simple. There's many benefits, many advantages when you have a plan, whether it's written, whether it's, no matter how it's written, formed, having a plan is going to go a long way for you when you consider everything it takes to sell a business, a funeral home, or a cemetery business specifically. There are benefits. It increases the odds of successful and beneficial deal structure, pricing, and transition. Again, when I talk earlier about how rewarding it can be, typically it's more rewarding when you have a plan in place. The earlier you do that, the more knowledgeable you are on the topic. You have a better understanding where your business sits today. Maybe there's some things that you would like to see change that can better your plans, your price, the deal structure, the transition. So again, think about that. Come up with a plan. Talk to your contacts. Talk to the experts in our field and let them guide you in that process. Another benefit is increasing the likelihood of finding the right buyer. That's a big piece to this as well. A lot of small business owners, they put their heart, their soul, all of their effort, their time, their weekends, their holidays. They put everything they have into the business. You want to make sure that you are giving your business or selling your business to that right individual or group that you know is going to do well by your name, continue the legacy? Is it someone that you want to see own your business one day, your baby, as we like to call in the space sometimes? It also enables time to prepare and maximize value of businesses. So again, this goes back to if you're taking, the initial steps on reaching out, asking someone to perform a cash flow analysis, a business valuation, understanding where you currently sit today if you were trying to sell your business. And if it's not a number, if it's not a structure, it's not an amount that is where you thought it was or where you want to be, learn what you can be doing to making sure that you're moving in the right direction and working towards that plan or using your plan to reach your end goal. It also relieves fear and anxiety to your staff, customers, knowing that they're going to be in good hands, that there's going to be someone there to bury mom or dad when they do pass away. You've helped with grandparents in the past. Now you may need to help with, someone's family, knowing that they're going to be in great care, that you're going to provide service, that your buyer is going to provide service, knowing that, a change in ownership is not going to change the greater good of the business. It also helps secure your legacy and retirement. Both are very important. A lot of people define their success on the legacy of their business. Some people may, classify their success on how well they treated their families and, what they did for their staff and their community. Some may look at success as, what was I able to sell my business for? Again, having a plan in place, having the right conversations with a lender, with a consultant, with an advisor is really going to help in this process. A lot of small business owners rely on the sale of their business for their retirement. So again, you want to be prepared. You want to know what your retirement is going to look like or what your need or amount is going to need to be. So therefore, you know what you need to be doing to making sure that your business can sell at that price. Or if it can today, great. If not, here are the things that we can be doing to maximize the business and help you sell your business. It enables you to plan on your terms and timing. Again, kind of going with what we just said. And it also can help with different loan types. And some loan types, some lenders, if your buyer needs financing, they may be curious on the succession plan, what that looks like. And again, if you're a buyer, again, be thinking about maybe what your succession plan looks like as well. I often get the question, I feel like I'm ready to sell. I don't know if I'm ready to sell. Some days I feel like it. Some days I feel like I got a lot more in me. Here are what I believe to be the signs that it may be time to sell your business. You're not intrinsically motivated. You don't get up every day and you're not excited to go to the funeral home. You're not excited to make arrangements. You're not excited to see your staff. You kind of maybe feel like your perspective in that regard has just changed from 6 months ago to where you are today. Think about where you are today, where you were last year. Has that changed any? Something else is more exciting, right? Maybe you have kids that are growing up. Maybe you have grandkids that are growing up. You like traveling. You like playing golf. There's plenty of things that maybe excite you more than running your small business or running your funeral home or cemetery. You don't want to compromise your personal energy. Again, you'd rather be doing other things than working the not so fun hours, the grueling times of being a small business owner, what that looks like, etc. You're no longer hungry. Again, kind of goes back to that intrinsically motivated. You're not itching to be the most successful funeral home in your area. You're okay with where things are. You don't have that extra drive that you maybe once had. Maybe you realize that a new owner may be better for the business. And this is really, really difficult to kind of come to terms with sometimes. Sometimes, spouse may have to help you with that, a business partner. Maybe you can come to it on your own, but sometimes it's hard for us to realize that, especially, if you put everything you have, your finances, your time, your sweat, everything into your business, it may be hard to let go. But maybe you realize that some, fresh perspective, a different generation can really help your family business or the legacy of your business. And that can be, maybe it's a sign to consider your next chapter or looking at the next generation. Risks and challenges. So this is kind of our second topic of today, identifying kind of what risk and challenges are, because there are some, whether you're looking to sell your business or buy a business. Let's make sure that everyone kind of understands what those look like and maybe a few things that we can do to be equipped and better for those challenges when they present themselves. Major risk. So I've identified 2 risks here from both a seller and a buyer perspective. For the seller, the big risk is choosing the right buyer. Who do you want to own the business that you currently own for decades? Who do you want to potentially bury you, right? Is it the right person? Is it a good face for the community, the business? Identifying who is going to be the best person for you. There can be an internal option. There could be an external option. And we'll kind of share some thoughts and what that looks like as possibilities. But a big risk is making sure that you're selling your business to the right individual or buyers. Also, getting paid. Are you going to be able to get what you want up front? And are you going to be able to are you going to be able to get what you want? Are you going to be able to, buyer be able to get financing? If you want to sell your business in the form of a seller note, can your buyer pay you back monthly? Do you trust them to do that? Can they operate the business efficiently where they can take care of, the debt to you if you're seller financing, their utilities? Can they pay their staff? So a big risk is making sure that you're finding, again, the right buyer. And we'll give you a few things to think about as we progress through our slides. And then from the buyer perspective, choosing the right business. If you're an individual, a director, maybe on the call that doesn't own a business today, but would like to, identifying and making sure that your first business acquisition is successful is really important. You really can be put in 2 different buckets. One, if you're put in a healthy bucket, you're going to be set up to be successful, put in the driver's seat day one and grow the business. It's also going to open up doors for expansion, growing, if that's what you're interested in doing. But if you're not finding the right business for you, then you could potentially be set behind the 8 ball and limit and hinder what your success looks like and, expanding your market share. So again, choosing the right business is really important. And then the transition of the business change in ownership, right? What is your buyer, as a buyer, what is your perspective of what the seller's involvement is going to be? Okay. So being transparent about that, we'll spend a few minutes talking about that as we progress. But again, there's more risks, but in my opinion, these are kind of the 2 big risks, the 2 things to be really kind of thinking about when you are either looking to sell or buy. So challenges to consider. What can we do to avoid them? So 3 big challenges that we've kind of identified for us to discuss today. Not properly communicating. Seems like that shouldn't be a challenge, but it very well can be, okay? Making sure that the buyer and sellers are communicating effectively. Or if you have a broker or a consultant helping you, making sure that communication is fluid, making sure that it's effective, transparent, expectations, everything is being communicated effectively and properly to making sure that there are no surprises. Nobody likes surprises. We want to make sure that all surprises are good surprises, and we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can. And that really starts with properly communicating. transition to clients, families, the folks that you have pre-need with, etc. And then a vision to staff and stakeholders. Again, really important to be communicating effectively, whether you want to keep it and making sure everything's under wraps and then effectively providing the information and, pulling your staff up to speed. But at some point, whenever it's the right time, you need to make sure that you're communicating effectively and properly. Very, very important and often overlooked, and just, thinking that that's no big deal and that should be a simple reality. But again, it's often overlooked and not thought out well. Again, making sure we're communicating properly is so important. Lack of agreeing on price, transition, timing, expectations regarding those two items, post-transition role of previous and new owner. So again, understanding, what the new buyer's roles are going to be, what your involvement as a seller may look like. So trying to make sure that you guys have some kind of agreement, expectations early is going to make for a smooth transition and really help the business continue to grow and be successful. There's workflow interruptions every day, and many of them. We all experience them, some of which, I may not even know, even though I spend 24/7, all my time in the death care space. There's workflow interrupters that I may not know about. But, some big ones that I thought worth mentioning were introducing new processes, trainings, right? Thinking about training a new owner to your specific way of doing business. Are they going to have the capacity? Are they going to effectively be able to train your existing staff if you bring in an external buyer, right? Transition meetings. What's the cadence for that? How are you guys meeting? And then gossip, silly enough, but there is a lot of gossip. Everybody talks. You want to make sure that you're doing everything the right way and making sure that it is going to be a smooth and successful transition. So just a few things to, how to avoid. Communication, having a clear plan, having a shared vision, right? Openly sharing what the goals are to all parties, to your bank, to your advisor, to your consultant, your broker. Communicating is important. So, the folks that spend all their time doing this can help you. Okay. Role clarity, understanding the seller's role from the beginning, what that looks like, what it will be. Simple deal structures. Again, if you have a certain, hey, I want X amount of cash up front, I want to hold some paper, I want to be compensated monthly over time. Again, understanding what your plans and what your goals are from both the buyer and seller side is going to help make for a simpler deal structure, which is what everybody wants. Having the right team of advisors with industry experience. This is a great industry, a great profession. There's so many talented people that are willing and able to help you. And, communicate, identify what your goals are, seek advice, reach out and let others help you and help you continue to provide guidance and education so you can, see what success really looks like when it comes to succession. Creating a succession strategy. Okay, so what does that look like? What are some things to talk about? So we'll spend the next few slides kind of identifying what maybe that looks like and why that needs to happen. I think first, you need to personally reflect and prepare, things for you to really consider. If you're a seller, okay, what will my days look like, right? Am I going to, spend some time at the funeral home or at the business? Am I going to move? What's going to kind of take your time? And when you spend all of your time maybe at your business today, what does that now look like for you? Hobbies, family time, community. Again, kind of thinking about what this looks like for you is really important. What will your finances look like? Can you maintain your current lifestyle, right? So if you're a seller, are you getting, a purchase price, a dollar amount that is going to allow you to live the same lifestyle? Are you going to have a better lifestyle? Are you going to have to maybe cut back on a few things? Hopefully that's not the case. Ideally, we're reviewing the opportunity. We're helping you understand where you are today. And then you can either move forward or you can, put into effect some of the suggestions or kind of things that we've identified that can maybe help you one day sell your business. How much do you need to retire? Again, meeting with your advisors, your accountants, whomever can help you figure out what that looks like for you. But again, that also kind of goes to, a buyer perspective as well. What will your lifestyle look like? What will your days look like when you buy a business? So again, there's a lot of things to think about. So I thought this would be a really good place to start as you think about, the next chapter. Is your business ready for sale? Preparation can boost business value and ease of transition. So again, this is kind of more or less a summary of a lot of the material that we've discussed today. But this is where, again, it's so important to understand where your business is today, identifying what your goals are, to making sure that you're putting the left foot in front of the right foot and continuing down that path and making sure everything that you're doing is helping you achieve both your short and long-term goals when it comes to succession. Thinking about what can be improved, adjusted, and optimized. Financials, what do they look like? Do they need to improve to, meet certain numbers, criteria that you have in mind or that you need? Who's currently doing your financials? Who are you currently meeting with? Is it someone local? Is it someone that has a lot of experience in the space? There's so many great accounting firms and groups out there that can help you prepare to sell and help give suggestions to improve your financials. So again, take that into consideration too. Is that something you're doing? Could you do better? Is that something you're not doing at all but would like to do? That could potentially help. Adjust products and offerings. As simple as, when was the last time you looked at your price list? What are your competitors potentially doing? What kind of products are you offering? What kind of services, offerings, et cetera? We hear a lot about potentially adding an event center, to cater to different families, their needs. Are you going to be the first to enter the market? Are you going to be the leader? Are you going to be the trendsetter? You're going to be the first there? That could all potentially help you, improve and optimize your business for what the future looks like. Optimizing workflows. So again, efficiencies, making sure that your staff feels really good. There's a clear shared vision. They know what, they need to be doing, what their goals are, how they can potentially, get to the next level in terms of pay, promotion, their responsibilities. Optimizing workflow in itself, if you're doing, optimizing your workflow, your staff is, altogether, you can simply improve and optimize the business with everyone rowing the boat. When was the last time a SWOT analysis was done? Have you identified the strengths of your funeral home, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? These are all things that really should be considered and thought about on a regular cadence to making sure that the business is, ready for whatever it throws its way. What's working really well? What are some opportunities that you can improve on, some different areas that can really help you when it's time to sell your business? So a really cool exercise, if you've never done a SWOT analysis, encourage you to do that. I think it can be really, really beneficial and help paint the picture or the target for you. Various styles of selling. So if you're an existing owner, which one feels more like where you'll land? Sell and leave, meaning immediately exit the business. You have your succession plan. you're currently in New York and you're ready to move to South Florida and enjoy the warm weather. That could be you, and that's great. Or you may be a seller that says, hey, I don't want to be the owner, health reasons, age, more family time, whatever it may be. But I want to stay involved in the industry. I want to stay involved in my business. Maybe I can stay on and be a consultant or an advisor or help out during a transition period. I think that's great. And I would think that many buyers and new owners would likely appreciate that. But again, that goes to communicating what your plans are, understanding what your buyer's plans, goals, expectations are, and making sure everyone's on the same page is really important. Keeping portion of clients, families, right? If you stay on, is that going to help the long term of the business? Are there certain folks that you would like to, be for when that unfortunate time comes? Selling portion to external buyers. And we'll kind of dive in a little bit more to what an external buyer looks like. Selling to an internal buyer. So again, we'll do the same thing. We'll talk about what an internal buyer looks like. But again, I think as you think about potentially selling your business, really think about what you want to do and what kind of role, what kind of capacity you want, because buyers may be curious and it's going to help you better prepare and think about what is best for you, your spouse, your kids, your family, whatever it may be. Identifying which bucket you're going to play a role in and then creating your plan based off of that is going to go a long way and really, really be beneficial, I do believe. Your ideal buyer or business. So this is kind of our last segment for today on, succession solving part 1. Again, if you have any questions, any thoughts, Rick, I appreciate your question. Looks like Kristen has acknowledged that. Feel free to throw whatever in the chat. Again, you'll have my contact information at the end. Would love the opportunity to hear more about you, your story, and chat and understand what your goals are. But let's spend the last few minutes here talking about your ideal buyer or the business, as this is a big, big, big piece of the puzzle. I think it's really important to identify and define your ideal buyer. What is your vision for this individual or individuals? So, if I'm a seller, here are some things that I'm considering. How much experience do they have? Were they just licensed? And that's perfectly fine. Do they have 20 years of experience? Have they been managing a location before without, necessarily being the owner? Do they have similar experience at your size firm, right? Do they have experience at a 500 call firm and now going to a 75 call firm or vice versa? How much experience do they have is a big deal and probably something that you're really curious on and wanting to know. Are you expecting them to retain your staff? Are they going to need to make changes? What does that look like? Those are things to really consider as well. How do they lead? Do you think they're going to mesh well with your existing staff? Which is a really nice segue to, is it a good cultural fit? Do they have similar values? Faith, family, community aspect. Do they have integrity, right? All of these things are probably something that you're really going to want to look for and really get to know when you're thinking about what your ideal buyer looks like. Can they afford your business? Do they have access to capital? Is it an individual that may need to borrow money? Or are they going to be able to get to borrow the money? Do they check a lot of boxes for you? Do they check boxes for the lending institution, the bank? That's a big piece as well. Can they afford your business? Is it someone that you want? Are they going to do the right thing? Are they going to be able to help grow the business? Do you have similar business models? So again, kind of, that shared vision, Are they currently at your business learning from you? Are they at a similar style business, just need the opportunity? Are you going to need to kind of share with them your model and what works best for your staff and community? So again, certainly not limited to this, but again, these are some of the larger things that I think are really important to consider when you're looking for who a potential buyer may be. Finding your ideal buyer. Talking with funeral home owners on a daily occasion, all day, every day. One of the biggest challenges right now is finding quality help. Existing staff. Andrew, I want to grow. I want to expand. But I don't have the existing staff that's going to allow me to do that. So it's hard enough finding great help a lot of times. It can be potentially more challenging to find the ideal buyer. So I thought it made sense to maybe look at where your buyer may be today. So your current staff. A lot of times, owners are just as successful due to a large role of their existing staff. Is there someone there today that would do a phenomenal job? Is it someone that goes above and beyond? Is it someone that's a great ambassador for your business? Maybe there is. Maybe that's a great place to start. That's a very popular option and something that we see and hear about all the time. Maybe there's not. What about personal relationships? Maybe you have a sibling. Maybe you have a nephew, a niece, a daughter that is wanting to get into the profession, and that you can have them join your staff. You can teach them, those personal relationships, use them to your advantage. Look at your contact list, look at your resources and see if there's someone there that could be a good candidate to own your business one day and to continue the success that you've built. Networking and industry events. How many folks do you meet at ICCFA when you go to the annual conference each year? State associations, LinkedIn, right? Networking, meeting individuals, asking colleagues, asking friends in the space. There's a lot of folks out there and a lot of folks that would love to own a funeral home or cemetery one day. They just need to be introduced to one another. Brokers and listing services. There's groups out there that do a phenomenal job of helping you identify a buyer and also a business that you want to potentially buy. So there's great individuals, great companies in our space that can certainly help with that. We've got a list too that can help, if you're looking to buy in a certain area or, you're looking for a potential buyer. Talk to your contact list, talk to the folks in the space that are in this every day and see if they can help you out. But great brokers, great listing services, they can help you connect buyers and sellers. Marketing, what are you doing? Are you marketing it? Are you trying to keep it under wraps? What are you doing to recruit great talent? In the ICCFA, what better place to network at or kind of rely on to potentially say, hey, I'm thinking about planning, at my retirement in X years, and I'm looking to find, a group or a buyer that would potentially be interested in buying one day. Do you know of anyone? Again, you're more than likely very connected, and rely on, your resources, tap into different markets, get on the phone. If, you don't have someone or don't want to sell to an existing staff member, or there's no one, in your family that's interested. But again, there's quite a few different ways, and certainly, again, not limited to just this, but to find the best buyer, the best candidate for you. Internal versus external. So again, pretty self-explanatory here, but internal buyers typically fall under the family member, employee, younger director that's been with you for a while that you trained, or someone that's been there for 20 years and this is the right individual to sell to. Someone at your management level, or maybe there's a potential partner shareholder that may be interested. Those are candidates or individuals that could potentially be classified as an internal buyer. So again, looking at what an internal buyer looks like, external buyer, which one you may fall under, which one's realistic, what's your preference. Again, just understanding what your options are and thinking about it from a different perspective can hopefully be helpful to you. An external buyer, so selling to a third party. Maybe it's your friend, maybe you're in Ohio and you've got a friend 90 miles away and they're younger and they want to grow. Maybe it's them. Maybe it's a competitor. Maybe it's an indirect or direct competitor. Maybe it's a colleague that you've met in an association or an event or another industry professional. Maybe it's a private equity firm. Again, understanding what your goals are, who you potentially want to sell to, what you're looking to get out of it, what's going to be considered, or what success looks like for you when it comes to succession solving and planning and selling your business. All things to consider here. But again, just want to share both what an internal buyer and external buyer looks like. Is these are really popular options and typically what we see and what's going on in the industry. Finding your ideal buyer. So again, not to spend too much more time on this specific topic, but prioritizing characteristics, identifying, ranking them. Are you putting together an interview process? Are you doing a background check? How did you find this candidate? What are their goals? Again, understanding what's important to you, prioritizing certain goals, characteristics. These are all things that the sooner you can do in advance, the easier this process is. You don't feel like you have to make a hurried, rushed decision because, a health scare, you all of a sudden have to sell. You want to make sure that you're doing these things, even if you're not vocalizing or writing it down. You want to make sure that you're thinking about the next generation or what's next for you each and every day. It's never too early. And I think doing these things frequently is going to be really refreshing and also take a lot of unneeded stress late in the game for you. So I really just classify all of this into 4 separate C's. So 4 different elements, if you will. Culture, the value proposition, the business, the service model. Do they mesh well with your existing staff? Do they know the community well? Character, do they do the right thing when no one's looking? Do they treat people well? Is that who you want potentially owning your business one day? Competence, capability, the capacity to serve families, their desire, right? What are they doing? What are their demands? How able, are they able to stretch themselves, and really serve as many families as possible, their abilities, their capabilities, right? All of that is something that can really be considered and as a part of one of the 4 C's here, if you will. And then capital. I think, this is a really nice way to weed out who's a for real and really interested buyer and who may just be a browser. Have they had any conversations with a bank, with a lender? How that can probably help you see if they're really serious and would be a good fit. So again, these are just really simple, different ways to identify what the right buyer may look like for you. And again, it may look a little bit different for each circumstance, each owner. But again, it's ultimately what your goals are, what your vision is, coming up with a plan and executing. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to see. And we want to see everybody be extremely successful with whatever success looks like for you. Identifying a business to buy. Things to consider. So again, this is more so switching gears now for the last few minutes on what a potential buyer maybe is thinking about. Whether you're buying your first, second, third, if you've done this a few times, this is likely easier for you, but maybe there's someone here today that, is thinking about retirement and succession. Again, it's never too early, but they haven't bought a funeral home or a cemetery yet. So here's some kind of big ticketed items that I think should really be looked at. Is it a good cultural fit? Similar values, right? You may have some level of experience today. What does it look like? Is it going to be a smooth transition? Or is it going to be completely different from a volume perspective? What does the staff look like? Is it a good fit? Does everybody get along? What kind of values does the business have, the staff members, the current owner or seller? What does that look like? Location is a big draw. Is it somewhere that you would want to live, potentially spend a lot of your time? Do you know the area well? Do you have a community base there? Do you have family there? Is it a place that maybe you would want to retire if you feel like you're going to have a lot of years left in you to potentially run and own that business? So location is another thing to really consider. Do your expectations align for transition? So again, this goes back to communicating, having a plan for both buying and selling, and then effectively communicating and identifying and discussing that. So your expectations for, the seller, if they're going to stay on for, a consulting gig for 12 months, if they're going to be there for a transition period, or if it's change in ownership, leave, sell and leave kind of seller. So again, understanding what you're walking into, understanding if there's going to be any kind of transition help, what the risk may look like, important things to really identify when looking at a business opportunity. Can you afford it? Simple, but can you afford it, right? Does the cash flow support the proposed debt? Are you going to be able to be successful and put in a healthy spot day one where you can, pay yourself, pay back whatever, and if any funds were borrowed to make that happen, pay your staff, pay your bills, pay the seller if there's a seller note. There's a lot that goes into it. And again, it goes back to if you are looking to buy your first business, thinking about succession, but also looking to buy your first business, your first one is so important because it's going to open up a lot of doors for you. If you do it the right way, if you are put in a healthy position from the start. You don't necessarily want to be in a position a few months into it and, thinking how you're going to make your next payment or, what's next, or you're going to hinder kind of your next stage, your next chapter, because you borrowed more money than you originally thought you could afford. So again, can you afford it? Good cultural fit, location, expectations between buyer seller from a transition standpoint, and can you afford it? Is it a good investment? Is it a good opportunity for me? So now would be a great time. If you do have any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. We got a couple extra minutes here. This is me. This is my contact information. This is my cell phone. I take it with me everywhere I go. It's the best way to reach me. Email is also great, but also know, there may be something that you may not want to discuss or disclose on this webinar, and would love to chat with you, just get to know you, understand what your plans are, help you kind of walk through the process, and provide some guidance along the way. So we've got a question. Thank you, Jerry, for the question. What do you consider as the most important business criteria for a potential buyer to look at when exploring a funeral home opportunity? What is the current multiple range that a potential buyer should be expecting today? Great question. Great question. And there's been a little bit of change with this due to the interest rate market last year or this year going up. And now you're seeing interest rates finally start to decline, which is nice for all involved. Let's start with part one. What do you consider is the most important business criteria for a potential buyer? I think one, cash flow and debt service coverage is extremely important. When you're buying a business and you're needing to borrow money, the source of repayment is cash flow, right? So you want to make sure from day one, you're going to be able to afford to pay yourself, what you need to live off, a modest new owner salary. But are you going to be able to cover all of your expenses and still have, a healthy amount of cash left over to save, to put back into the business, pay down debt more aggressively, whatever that looks like for you. So I would say, the most important criteria is cash flow and making sure that you are identifying a business that you personally can afford from both your personal obligations and personal abilities, but then also what that business can support in terms of cash flow. So, if you reach out, Jerry, and have an opportunity, we could walk through a cash flow analysis together and kind of pre-qualify you and share with you what you could potentially be approved for, or what a potential purchase price deal structure would look like for you. I would also kind of add to that business trends and margins are, truth telling as well. Because at the end of the day, numbers are truth telling and can really give you a good sense. Doesn't define necessarily everything about your business, but it's nice if you're on the buyer side to be identifying a business that maybe hasn't reached its full potential, has growing revenues, a growing net operating margin that's generating profit, but becoming more and more profitable each year. Maybe a business that hasn't reached its full potential and you can come in and have some fresh ideas and can grow the bottom line or that margin. That can be icing on the cake for you and provide surplus cash flow to pay yourself more money, upgrade the facility, pay out bonuses to your great staff. So those are a few of the components, criteria, items that we kind of look for when helping a buyer identify the best business for them or what a good investment or good opportunity looks like. And then current multiples, this really kind of depends on maybe the loan product and what's included in the sale. So when you talk about it from a cash flow perspective, again, which is the source of repaying any kind of debt. So if you're needing to borrow money, cash flow. Typically, the cash flow can support, I would say, anywhere from 5 to 7x if real estate is included in the sale. Again, that can vary based upon the size of the firm, the profitability, right? A 15% margin firm may go for a lesser multiple, of course, than a 40% margin firm. So it's kind of a range, but I would say if real estate's included, typically cash flow can support 5 to 7x EBITDA or net operating income. Pretty interchangeable, but essentially the cash flow available to you. And then, if real estate's not included, and let's say you have an opportunity just to buy a book of business, the name of the business, but you're maybe operating out of a leasehold, that's going to be a shorter term loan. That could probably be anywhere from maybe 3 to 4, 2.5 to 4x, I would say. Again, depending on, the success, the profitability, the size of the firm. Again, that plays a role in it as well when you are kind of looking at what numbers work and maybe what doesn't work. Great question, Jerry. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any more thoughts on that, again, please just give me a ring there. There's my cell phone. Would love to chat and kind of share a little bit what we see on a daily basis. Any other questions here? All right. Well, thank you guys again. Really appreciate ICCFA for having me. Thank you for everything you do for the industry. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate you guys joining. Again, we will be doing a second session January 30th. So if you're not signed up and this was helpful, would love to see many of you guys back on the webinar. And if there's someone that you think that could also benefit, encourage them to sign up too. And if you guys ever need anything or want to chat or, learn more or strategize, reach out at any time. And hope you guys have a great rest of your week and happy holidays. And we will see you guys next month. Thank you.